Chapter 1. The day Germany realized America was not what they thought. For years, Germany laughed at America, a nation of shopkeepers, soft, slow, harmless. But on this day, the shopkeepers showed their teeth. This wasn't a battle. This was the moment an empire realized they had miscalculated the wrong enemy. Then came the sight Germany was never meant to see. If you underestimate the wrong nation, you lose a war before the war even starts. For decades, German high command believed one thing: America can't build, America can't fight, America can't mobilize. But the moment they finally faced the U.S. Army, that belief died instantly. Kasserine Pass, the slap that woke the Wehrmacht. Yes, America stumbled. Yes, their units broke. Command collapsed. Chaos everywhere. And Germany smirked. But then something terrifying happened. The Americans started learning, faster than any army Germany had ever faced. General von Arnim wrote, "Their recovery speed was unnatural." America wasn't weak. America was evolving. The thing Germany never expected. They didn't fear American soldiers until they saw the machine behind them. German intelligence arrived in Berlin, numbers no one believed. Liberty ships built in days, factories retooled overnight, tanks rolling out faster than Germany could destroy them. Berlin asked, "How is this possible?" The answer: America had been industrially engineered for war, even before it entered the war. The realization. During the North African campaign, German commanders saw something horrifying. Every time they destroyed American armor, more arrived, twice as many. Every time American units collapsed, they rebuilt, faster, stronger. The Wehrmacht was a legendary fighting force, but America was something different, a nation that turned industry into a weapon. Kasserine was only the warning, but Germany didn't understand the message until D-Day. Chapter 2. Germany thought they understood America. D-Day proved they didn't even know what category America belonged to. This wasn't an invasion. This was a civilization switching from peace mode into industrial annihilation mode. And when the Germans looked across the channel that morning, they realized they had been preparing for the wrong enemy. What the observers saw made no mathematical sense. Reports came in with numbers that broke doctrine, numbers that broke logic, numbers that should not have been possible. Germany expected soldiers. They got a logistical engine wearing uniforms. At dawn, the English Channel stopped being water. It became metal. A horizon so crowded with ships that German binoculars blurred trying to track them. For years, Berlin mocked America as unfocused, undisciplined, lacking the warrior heritage of Europe. But what arrived on D-Day was not heritage. It was throughput. It was scale. It was the kind of industrial velocity no European army had ever faced. D-Day wasn't a landing. It was the exposed edge of an industrial iceberg stretching from New York to Chicago to Los Angeles. For decades, German officers laughed at American firepower. Wasteful, they said. Crude, they said. Brute force with no finesse. Then the bombardment started, and the continent moved. German bunkers, master-crafted, reinforced, engineered to survive anything short of an earthquake, folded like wet cardboard. Shorelines evaporated into mist. Gun positions didn't fall. They disappeared under naval blasts so violent they cracked the bedrock beneath Normandy. This wasn't bombardment. This was industrial energy unleashed with no ceiling. A German diary entry captured it best. They fire as if the war has already been paid for. And it had been. Then came the moment German command stopped believing their own numbers. Every American tank destroyed, 2 more appeared. Every landing craft sunk, 10 more pushed forward. Every infantry company shattered. Replacements arrived before the previous units were even fully gone. Germany feared elite soldiers, but they had no concept of fearing a supply chain. And that was America's true weapon. The United States didn't fight like an army. It fought like a system, a machinery of logistics, replacement, and production so vast Germany couldn't see it, couldn't touch it, and couldn't stop it. America didn't win battles. America overwhelmed variables. Weeks after D-Day, the Wehrmacht regrouped, convinced the Americans would slow down. Instead, Operation Cobra began, and the sky opened. A moving wall of bombers erased an entire defensive zone, not broke it, not penetrated it, erased it. German formations weren't defeated. They were unmade, disassembled, converted into statistical noise scattered across a map. One German survivor said,
"It felt like the sky declared war on us."
And at that moment, the Wehrmacht finally understood the truth. They hadn't misjudged American bravery. They hadn't misjudged American skill. They had misjudged something far more dangerous. They misjudged American capacity. And no doctrine, no legend, no empire survives a war against capacity. Chapter 3. Germany didn't fear Patton because he was aggressive. They feared him because he operated at a speed that broke their math. This wasn't maneuver warfare. This was a man treating an entire army like a scalpel. D-Day showed Germany America's power. Patton showed them America's momentum. And when German analysts looked at the map of France, watching arrows move at speeds no 1944 army should physically achieve, they understood something was very, very wrong. Germany mastered tactics. Patton mastered tempo. For years, the Wehrmacht ruled Europe with Bewegungskrieg, movement warfare. They believed nobody could out-accelerate them. Then they met Patton. Patton didn't just move fast. He moved at a velocity the German general staff didn't even have symbols for. American convoys do not march, they flow. American supply lines don't follow troops, they anticipate them. Patton builds a 600-mile pipeline in days. He turns farm roads into highways. He turns divisions into liquid force. And suddenly, Germany realizes something terrifying. They're no longer fighting an army. They're fighting a momentum field. Germany fought the war on maps. Patton fought it in the future. Here's the secret Germany never understood. Patton didn't react. He predicted. He played battles like chess openings. He saw German counter-moves before they were authorized. He built momentum not from victories, but from assumptions. Assumptions about how Germans must behave when pressure is applied at impossible angles. Patton weaponized time. He treated hours like ammunition. When Patton's Third Army enters France, German reports read, "Enemy armored columns appear where no road exists." That wasn't metaphor. That was how far ahead he operated. He wasn't just moving forces, he was outpacing thought. Then came the move that broke German doctrine. The 90-degree turn. December 1944, the Battle of the Bulge. The Germans launch their last desperate offensive. Snowstorm, chaos, Allied lines collapsing. Eisenhower asks Patton, "How fast can you pivot north?" Patton answers, "We're already turning." In 48 hours, he rotates 3 entire divisions 90 degrees, a maneuver normal armies require weeks to plan. To German intelligence, this is witchcraft. They report, enemy axis of advance unknown. Movement contradicts logistical possibility. Patton didn't just move troops. He bent the architecture of operational warfare. No army in Europe had ever done this, not even the Germans at their peak. Germany believed war was about skill. Patton proved war was about velocity, and velocity belongs to the side with unlimited fuel. The Wehrmacht was trapped in the 1940 model. Elite troops, flawless tactics, clean doctrine. Patton threw that worldview in the trash. His army doesn't stop, doesn't rest, doesn't wait for perfect timing. Why? Because Patton understood the single greatest truth of modern war. Whoever moves faster decides the battlefield. Whoever decides the battlefield wins before the battle starts. Germany fought battles. Patton fought the tempo of existence. And once his tempo locked onto German positions, there was nothing left to do but collapse. German had seen American firepower. They had seen American speed. But they still hadn't seen America's final weapon, the thing no empire in history had ever overcome. Chapter 4 isn't about guns or tanks. It's about inevitability. Chapter 4. Germany didn't lose because they were outfought. They lost because the war they prepared for wasn't the war America brought. There is a point in every conflict where victory stops being a possibility and becomes a mathematical impossibility. For Germany, that moment came long before the surrender. And in this chapter, we reveal the exact second they finally understood it. Germany thought they were fighting a country, but by late 1944, they realized they were fighting a continent converted into a weapon. You can defeat armies. You cannot defeat mass. German intelligence compiles a report comparing total industrial output. The numbers don't make military sense. They don't make economic sense. They don't even make physical sense. America is producing more planes per month than Germany produces in a year. More fuel per week than Germany produces in a month. More tanks than Germany can destroy. More ships than Germany can sink. German High Command quietly gives it a name: the Wall. Because no matter what Germany does, America replaces faster than Germany erases. This isn't war anymore. This is physics. Germany built masterpieces. America built multiplication tables. Germany invested in elite divisions, precision tanks, flawless engineering. It looked superior. It felt superior. But the war wasn't asking for excellence. It was asking for scale. And America brought scale like no civilization in human history. Shermans rolling out of Detroit like vending machine products. Liberty ships built faster than U-boats could reload. Factories running 24/7 like mechanical lungs pumping endless steel into the war. Hitler demanded miracles. America delivered logistics. And suddenly Germany realized the horrible truth. Their entire military philosophy was optimized for the wrong century. Germany kept planning the decisive battle. America kept deleting the concept of decisive battles. Throughout 1944 and 45, German generals searched for the one reversal, a miracle breakthrough, a collapse in Allied morale, something, anything. But each time, destroy 300 American tanks, 500 arrive next month. Sink 10 ships, 12 more launch. Shoot down bombers. Entire fleets are replaced before the wreckage stops burning. There is no attrition curve. There is no exhaustion limit. There is no moment when America begins to bleed. And that's when German command realizes the truth they had been avoiding. This opponent cannot be drained. War has stopped being about strategy. It is now about endurance, and Germany has none left. By 1945, Germany isn't fighting to win. They're fighting to negotiate the terms of the inevitable. Patton's breakthroughs to the west, the Red Army closing in from the east, bombers deleting cities overnight, fuel reserves evaporating into nothing. But the true death blow wasn't a battle, or a tank, or a general. It was the moment the Wehrmacht understood a nightmare mathematical fact. Even if every American soldier vanished overnight, Germany still couldn't win. American factories alone, with no soldiers, no tanks, no planes, would still outproduce Germany and Japan combined. That's when the German command silently accepts the final truth. They aren't losing the war. The war has simply finished loading, and they are on the wrong side of history. Germany spent 2 decades preparing for the perfect European war. America spent 2 decades preparing for the perfect American economy. And when those two systems collided, only one was built to survive impact. The Wehrmacht was legendary, but America was inevitable. If you want more World War II stories told like this, subscribe now, because the next chapter is darker, sharper, and even more unbelievable than this one.